This is Woman Enough, where we celebrate the stories and shed light on the struggles of what it means to be a woman working in the arts in Australia. An industry where we see women kicking goals and inciting change every single day, but where the gender pay gap sees women earning 25% less than their male counterparts. An industry in which women historically were discouraged from participating in the arts, and many that did defy convention discovered their careers hinged on winning the favour of men. This series focuses on what we as women are doing to change that inequality, to pave the way for future women through our words and through our art, proving that women are enough. This is Woman Enough. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay respect to their elders past, present and future. My name is Melody Moko. I am an artist, musician and singer-songwriter from Brisbane, and this is Woman Enough, a series that celebrates women in the arts. Today, I am so excited to be chatting to a powerhouse in the Americana music industry. Not only is she an acclaimed singer-songwriter compared to the likes of Lucinda Williams and Patty Griffin, she trained as a vocalist at the Boston Conservatory, is a multi-instrumentalist, teaches songwriting at various universities, and is a host on a successful Americana radio show, 3 Chords and the Truth. Today we chat to her about her songs and her story. Welcome, Jen Mize.
Thanks, Melody. That's nice to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you here.
Yeah.
I thought I'd touch on a few things that I actually hadn't prepared in my questions, but they've just come to me when I've been reading your introduction. The fact that you're a multi-instrumentalist, I think, is generally looked upon as a male sphere a lot of the time. Yeah. So can you what do you play first of all, and do you find that as a female you come up against any
Preconceived notions?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, I do. So I started off playing, my mom got me into Suzuki violin when I was like 3 years old. So she put a violin in my hand when I was, it was a 16th size.
Wow.
This tiny thing, which I credit for a lot of my ear training, because that's how they teach that method, the Suzuki method. And then I put that down because I was, 6 and I wanted to be a ballerina and do other things. And then around about 6th grade, which I think are around 11 or 12 years old, something like that, they have a program in the 6th grade centers in Las Vegas back then that you'd either go into one of the music categories. You'd either have to take choir, band, or orchestra.
Okay.
And, I like to sing, so I went into choir, and this man came in the choir room. This beautiful, tall, very handsome black man came in the choir room, and he came in begging for people to come to the orchestra. And he brought a bass and a cello with him, because I think he had enough violinists. So I think he was trying to get more lower string section stuff going. And he played, Stand By Me on the bass, and he played something on the cello. And I was like, yeah, I'm convinced. I'll go to orchestra. Cool. So I went over there and got conned into playing the cello. And I came home, and I remember my mom going, "You were supposed to join choir." And I came home with this big bulky cello, and she was like, "Oh man," like she knew what, kind of screechy wailing,
Of course,
that was going to be in her life for the next, couple years at least. So I started playing cello around that time, and then I didn't take up another instrument until I was an adult. Like, I didn't take up guitar until I was probably 24 and working on a cruise ship doing musical theater shows and silly dancing stuff. And I was bored to death because I had all these ship days, sea days, where I had nothing to do, and I'd read every book in the library, and So I bought a guitar off of the old stage manager who was leaving. And then I taught myself some Tracy Chapman chords from ultimateguitar.com. And
good old ultimateguitar.com.
Yeah. And then, you know, I just started songwriting, and that led to now playing a bit of mandolin, dulcimer, a bit. And these, I'm not a proficient on really any of them. Like they were songwriting tools. So mandolin, dulcimer, ukulele. I guess I'm proficient on guitar, and now piano as well.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
And as far as preconceived notions from...
Oh, yeah, I get the chick singer thing.
Yeah, of course.
The dumb chick singer thing a lot.
And what...
Yeah.
The dumb chick singer thing.
Yeah.
What comes along with that for people who don't understand what you might mean by we get the dumb chick singer thing? How does that mean people treat you?
You know, there are 1,000 different small episodes of slight and assumption. You know, you get to sound check and you get a sound engineer who won't actually speak to you, but will only speak to the men in the band because he assumes you don't know how to speak sound or you don't know anything about your work. I did notice a really big change when I started bringing in really good gear. Like my actual gear would inform someone before they knew who I was or what I could do. They would see my guitar, they would see my preamp, they would see my gear and go, oh, no, she's somewhat serious. She's not messing around. She's using K&K pickups, K&K preamp. That I found made a difference.
Right.
And then eventually my name started to make a little bit of a difference. I still come across it. I got into an on-stage battle with a sound engineer at the Gimpy Mustard last year. And I was emceeing.
Wow.
And it was, I mean, he just treated me like dirt. So, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what, like, I'm just some dumb chick singer. What do I know? And, you know, I know that there's probably a lot of that perception lies with me. Like, every time somebody slights me, am I just seeing that because I've seen that before? Yeah, probably a bit, you know? But it can't be all the time. Yeah. Like 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong. If it's happening again and again and again,
there's some truth in it.
There's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about in your work in radio? So you work on an Americana radio show, 3 Chords and the Truth. And have you ever felt that you've been disadvantaged as a woman in radio, or not so much?
Not in radio so much. I mean, I've only been at the 98.9 in Brisbane, 98.9 FM, and I've been treated with the utmost respect and equality there. I haven't, as an artist, you know, traveling around and occasionally getting interviewed, I'll occasionally run into a little bit of chauvinism, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a little bit of chauvinism, but it's kind of like that meditation thing where, you know, you're like, yep, you recognize it and you let it go.
Yeah, you acknowledge it, you let it go.
Yep, that was chauvinism. Yep, I'm just gonna.
Well, we've had to develop that sort of a thick skin with chauvinism because it's such a common thing that happens as female artists. I think that now it's gotten to a point where you don't really even react.
A lot of time you don't react because, I mean, the inner monologue that happens with me, I can't speak for every woman, but what happens with me is I go, is it worth it? Like, is it worth it right now in this situation to go, man, come on, and make it a confrontation? Or is it just better? And there's a lot of big part of me wants to go, man, come on. Don't I like at least get some kind of common decency? But I do believe those encounters are becoming more few and far between. So I am trying to do what my mom said is pick my battles. Because I don't want people to think I'm confrontational all the time. I don't want people to think I'm out there to educate the masses. I want to lead through example, and I think the best way for me to lead through example is to, you know, really take my work seriously. Let my work speak for itself. Let it enter the room before I enter the room. And then hopefully, you know, and things like this where you're really being candid about it and talking openly and, you know, where people go, oh, it really is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think with the rise of social media and, you know, women being able to have a voice, not only as an artist with a microphone on a stage, but also their own opinions, you know, they can share them on their social media and they can share them via, you know, YouTube, not only their art, but just their opinions. How do you feel about that as a woman? Like, do you think that we should be using our platform and our microphone to share our opinions on feminism and issues that we face as women?
I definitely do. I think everybody's got a different platform, right? And if you're just the average person, you know, you might not have a big platform, but you have every ability to go out, do good works, and make your platform bigger. Nothing is stopping anybody. So because it's music, the whole shut up and sing Dixie Chicks thing, oh man, it made me so upset.
Yeah.
Years ago, you know, even now, it makes me upset because I feel like there's a lot of situations where men can say something and nobody gets upset. They're like, oh, he's fighting for the good cause, but a woman says something and, you know.
Shut up and sing.
Yeah. There's a bit of that. I do believe you do have to pick your battles. I do, you know, if you're just a cause fighter, it's going to start tuning down and people are going to pay less attention. I think you have to give something that you really care about a really good place. You have to give a good argument. You have to be open to discussion. It's tough with, you know, social media is not the best platform to have these conversations. I think podcasts are actually the best platform to have these kinds of civil debate and conversation, because we're actually talking as humans. And even though you and I probably agree on most things, if there was something we disagreed on, we could have a rational conversation about it and come to at least some more understanding of each other. I definitely think there's room to use your platform as an artist. I mean, and at the end of the day, we're all doing art for the sake of communication, for the sake of the human condition. It's inevitable that the human condition is going to come into your art and it's going to affect you, and you're going to then send your art out to affect others. Like it's an inevitability.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all fair game.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about you. Speaking about art, you have produced some work that is just phenomenal in my opinion. I really, really enjoyed Twilight on the Trail. That you was a recent project of yours. I just think it was such a beautiful album, and the songs that you chose were just gorgeous. Can you tell us a little bit more about that project?
Yeah, I've been friends with, for quite a while now, a singer-songwriter, local Brisbane guy named Mark Schultes. And we met during a songwriter night, like an actual songwriters round night that used to happen in Brisbane called The Round.
Okay.
It was put together by a group of like-minded musicians and singer-songwriters, and we used to hold it like every Wednesday night. The Round would happen at the Douse Bar, which is across from Suncorp. Well, it was.
Okay.
It's renamed now. And we met there, and it had been one of those things where for years people had been saying, oh, have you met Jen, or have you met Mark? He'd been getting the questions, I'd been getting the questions, that we just never crossed paths. Mm-hmm. And the first night we crossed paths, I, fell in love with his songwriting. I was like, he played something, and I was like, oh, wow.
Uh-huh, yeah.
To the point where, the next time he played at the Round, I was on stage with him, and I went and learned his entire repertoire. Because I became a fan. I didn't learn it so that I could, bum rush his set. But, I became a genuine fan. So when he started, he started his songs, and I'm like, I'm going to throw a little harmony in right now. And, afterward, he was like, okay, I want to... he says something like, I didn't want to ever hear my songs without Jen again. It's very nice of him. But
yeah.
That's what he says. And then I started doing BVs for him on records of his, and we collaborated, started writing together. We've written an entire record of original songs.
Okay.
For a duo that we will eventually do and release. And then he came to me with this idea. We were teaching at USQ, and I was roped into, okay, here's the jazz guitar teacher, and we're going to do a standard. And he looks at me and he's like, Jen, come up and sing. And I'm like, right. And he's like, so we're going to do a standard. What standard do you want to do, Jen? And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I'm like, oh, Hoagie Carmichael's The Nearness of You in G. And then we do it. And afterward, Mark said that after hearing me sing a standard, because he never really heard me sing jazz and that kind of jazz approach to things, like kind of croonery approach to things, that he had been sitting on this Cowboy crooners record idea for forever. And then he came to me and said, I've got this idea and I'm thinking we could do it as a duo and, but I'm, it's early days. I haven't picked songs. I haven't done, so we picked all the songs together and, I said, if I'm going to be part of this and I'm not just singing backups for you, if it's, trading off, then I want some things represented that represent my idea of what the Old West kind of standards are. Like there has to be something that touches on Native American life, and there has to be something that touches on the Spanish American influence and something from women in there. Like it has to be. I
mean, it's hard taking songs from that era too. But
it is. Yeah, it is. There's plenty of versions. Yeah. With Dale Evans singing lead, but as far as I know, she really only penned a few songs. I think she penned Happy Trails, which we didn't include on the record, which we thought about including, but I got into, the old timey, Red River Valley and Home on the Range, and these really old songs. I mean, I think those songs are like 1865 or something like that. So we're talking obvious public domain. Yeah. But really old tunes. And then all the Dale Evans stuff, the Sons of the Pioneers, Cool Water, the Roy Rogers. And then I threw in a couple little crazy ones in there, some avant-garde out of left field kind of things.
It's really such a cool body of work, I think, and unlike anything else that was, that has come out of Australia in a long time. Oh, so thanks. I really loved it, and sonically it was just beautiful. What was the recording process like for that?
We did most of the band beds at USQ QUT Calvin Grove. Okay, yeah. Because Mark worked at USQ, there's a relationship between the two universities, and they've got a beautiful recording complex and studio over there. We decided to put together the best jazz musicians we know with the best country musicians we knew, and we wanted that blend of colors, that blend of approaches, and we got a really good versions of that. So much so that when we toured the record, we did the same thing in every town. Okay. We did not take one band. We showed up and we put best country players in Melbourne together with the best jazz musicians in Melbourne. That. And we did that again and again as we toured. So it was always new and really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
That would have been incredible, having these new bands come together and seeing the vibe of everybody working together. Yeah. How cool. I love that.
It was and it was music in the moment, because, we'd get to town and we'd have load in, rehearsal, run through, play.
Do it.
Like that was it. So everybody's really has to be on point and on the ball and know their stuff.
And what level of improvising happened with the jazz musicians?
Oh, really good level. Like so much so that the first time we did 2 shows in Melbourne at the Spotted Mallard, and the first time this really amazing bass player, Sam Anning, he did the solo intro to Cow Cow Boogie, and he's like, and I'm like, yeah, man, this is your moment. Like, go to town, take time, come into it, do this big improvisation, and then come into the boom, boom, and he got to the boom, and I was still like in La La Land, like I'm like, and he's like vamping, and I'm like, oh, wow, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I have to sing a song.
Oh, I do have to sing.
I'm like, microphone, So yeah, it's just amazing, and James Sherlock, amazing jazz guitarist in Melbourne, on stage with Mitch Power, and James was Mitch's guitar teacher in the day, so Mitch was then showing his old teacher like what he could do, and it was the most amazing moment. Like there was no competitiveness. It was all camaraderie. Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, yeah. And you grew up in the States, which I think
did.
people have probably gathered already from listening to you speak.
Pretty serious accent. Yeah.
Pretty serious accent. Still rocking a pretty serious accent, which I love that you...
Yeah.
Although when you speak to people in the States, do they say, oh, you sound so Australian?
My mom thinks I have an Australian accent, which I know I don't. It's like, that's ridiculous. But I think I've taken on certain colloquialisms and like inflection and things like that. So I inflect up now because most Australians inflect up at the end of a sentence. And Americans don't. Like, normally, if I was in America, I'd be like, yeah, you inflect up at the end of a sentence.
Right. I hear that now that you speak, that you say it like that. Yeah,
I still have the same accent. I've just used my speech in different patterns now.
Linguistically, it's slightly different. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay. And apart from inflecting up,
yes.
What other differences have you noticed? So how serious were you about your music when you're in the States? And then how serious has it become a thing since you've moved to here more?
Yeah, I moved here in June of 2006, and I just come off of, working on cruise ships and doing musical theater shows and national tours of that type of thing. And I met an Australian man while I worked on cruise ships and fell in love. So the story goes. Very much the Love Boat kind of situation. And then we moved back to Australia after we got married, and we spent the first year of our marriage on a cruise ship again on like this extended honeymoon, and went to like 56 countries. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, no rent. It was, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So, we moved here, and I, had only just taken up guitar. I was barely a songwriter. I think I probably had like 10 songs under my belt. So there was a lot of time in my bedroom with my new guitar and trying to figure out what songwriting was and what my voice as a songwriter was. And that, you would understand that feeling like the clock was ticking down on me the whole time because I'm female.
Yeah,
because I bought into it. I bought into the whole, you have to be, a good-looking woman who's fairly young for anyone to pay attention to you. And I had all these, internal monologues and self-doubt. And
do you think that's true?
I don't think it's true now.
Yeah.
I was convinced it was true then.
Yeah. I
was absolutely convinced, and I was chomping at the bit to kind of get out there and get seen and heard. And I realized much later that I wasn't ready. Like I went to Nashville and recorded an EP that no one will ever hear. Ever. And it's got great musicians on it. They're all, the musicians were amazing. I mean, I was like standing in the the booth, like crying because they've made something out of, he made the mountains out of my molehills, and I was taken away. But I wasn't there as a songwriter. I didn't have a voice yet. I wasn't really honing in on who I was. So I kind of I didn't put it down. I put it on, like, putting it out on the back burner and just spent a few years trying to hone my songwriting and really get that under control. And when I knew who I was, then I started putting something out. That was 2012.
2012
was my first record.
Wow, so not so long ago that your first record came out.
No, not that long ago.
So you're not an old hat at this Americana industry.
No, I'm just a nerd. I just love it, and I dive so deep into it. And I always loved it. I'd loved it beforehand. I was a massive Bonnie fan, Joni Mitchell and James Taylor, and I loved the songwriters, and I loved like outlaw country and classic rock.
Yeah.
So there was always this, and then soul, and there was all these things that were all there, but I was trying to figure out how to put them together and how to still remain myself, like knowing that I wasn't so. I don't love the blues so much that I wanted to be the next Bonnie Raitt. I don't love folk so much that I wanted to be the next Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
I kind of like mixing them together.
Yeah.
And be the first me was the ideal. I'm still not sure that I reached that, but that was the ideal. Yeah.
So do you feel like Australia's home now for you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time since 2006. America's changed quite a bit in that amount of time. And the more that, I've got this massive love of the land and the people, my family and friends. I'm Native American, so I have a real attachment to the land in America. But at this point, I feel like my sense of humor is more Australian. It's changed over the years. There's this piss taking thing is just like, I'm on board. It's great. I don't find things that are corny funny anymore.
Okay.
Where I used to find them, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But make me watch, what's that show? Men. That men.
Oh, three men and a bait.
Something like that.
Men.
Yeah. I just find that show repulsive.
Me too.
It's not funny at all. So I guess my sense of humor has changed a bit, and just my awareness of the world changed a lot. When you leave America, you live in this isolated, ideal place where you think everyone's told you the truth all the time, and then you leave and you realize there's so much bullshit that you were fed, and the world is much grander and much more complicated, and cultures are the coolest things ever if you can let go of your own preconceived notions, and it's been a really good journey for me. It's been the best possible journey for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm kind of Aussie, even though I have this accent.
I feel like you're kind of Aussie too.
I hope they let me stay.
I've always wondered how long you'd been here, because you do feel like an Australian to me more than an American. So it almost feels like this automatic thing when I talk to you, like, oh yes, you've got that Aussie sensibility and that sense of humor, and
I'm glad that that's
do,
the case,
I promise.
Because I often wonder, I'm like, am I just weird for everybody?
No, definitely not. One thing I want to talk about just before we leave is you've had some really interesting jobs. We talked about the cruise ship stuff. When I was researching you for this podcast, not the most interesting, but something that was quite fascinating to me, quite random, was you were a singing gondolier.
Yes, I was.
Can you tell me how you became a singing gondolier?
Yes, there was. I was going to school in Boston for uni. And I don't know if you know this, but Boston's a really expensive place to live.
Okay.
And just to make ends meet, I couldn't just stay in Boston during the summer and get like a waitressing job or anything, because it just wasn't going to cut it with rent and food and books and all that stuff. So I would go back to Las Vegas, which is my hometown.
Okay. Wow, Las Vegas is your hometown.
Yeah, that's where I grew up.
Right, okay.
Random.
Right near the strip?
No, I grew up on a horse property about 45 minutes outside of Las Vegas.
My naive Australian opinion of what Las Vegas is.
I grew up 45 minutes northwest of Las Vegas in the Mojave Desert. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So I would go back to Las Vegas to work summer jobs to try to make enough money to make ends meet, and I would take on multiple jobs at once. And the the gondolier job came about because I studied opera long ago, like when I was like 14, and took it very seriously for a very short time until I realized that I was the wrong voice type to ever play any of the cool roles.
Okay.
Like I was just always going to be this like woman in man's clothing, and I was like, I don't know, that's who I am. I dabbled a lot. No, I dabbled a whole lot.
Yeah, multi-instrumentalist on another level, opera and everything.
So I did take opera, and so and then for years I would sing at this place called Romano's Macaroni Grill. I was the opera singer. Which means I would go around and sing Italian art songs to tables full of people, and they would tip me, and my tips were awesome.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I'm using my stuff. Yeah. So I auditioned to be a gondolier at the Venetian Hotel and Casino, and they make you, I don't know if they still do this, but they make you act like you're actually Italian.
With an accent and all.
Oh yeah, like you have a backstory. Oh yeah, you are supposed to fool the people in your gondola that you're truly Italian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely only in America, but yes.
Yep, very much so. I mean, and you're truly doing the gondola. So if I go to Venice, like I could actually, I'm proficient at gondola.
Nautical skills.
I've got that push and pull gondola thing. It's like a crazy figure eight thing. You're using a rudder like this. I can turn it. You push. It's going to turn right. You pull. That's going to turn
Wow.
left. I'm telling you.
Look, when you need gondola skills, come and see Jazmyn.
Come and see me.
You want someone to row your gondola.
If you want Italian art songs and some gondola at the same time, I've got that in the bag.
What was your backstory?
Okay, well, I was from the town of Siena. Mm-hmm. I think my name was Donna. From Siena. I had this whole accent, like, and we would say things like, molto bene, principessa, oh, bueno, you know, like, do it, and then we, like, honestly had to act like we were Italian. I mean, at the time, I had, like, dark, long hair, and they put you in, like, the striped shirts and the pants with the red sash and the straw hat and the whole shebang.
And this was part of the audition?
Oh,
The accent and...
Oh, yeah.
Great.
It was like 3 weeks of training. You passed the audition, then you had to train for 3 weeks because you had to get good at that thing, or else you'd crash the boat. It's not on tracks.
And it's the Venetian. It's a high-end...
It's fancy.
Fancy place.
Fancy place.
It's very fancy. Wow.
Random.
Well, that
so random.
is the best way, I think, to end out today's episode.
Random Jazmyn facts.
Jazmyn was, look, Donna the Gondolier in another life.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
But I do want to say thank you very much for being with us here today on the podcast.
It's my pleasure.
It's been so much fun.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mel. I'm so glad you're doing this. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you. Woman Enough was recorded at the Moon Room Studios in Brisbane, Australia. It was filmed by Jazmyn Bowman and recorded and edited by Michael and Melody Moko. Our theme music is Fierce by Fanny Lumsden. To hear more about Jen Mize, visit her website www.jenmize.com. If you'd like to hear some of her fabulous music, you can find her on any of your favourite streaming services. This has been Woman Enough. Join us again next time to hear more stories about inspiring women.